The shadow of Diana's treatment by the media and the institution haunts William. His update on Meghan is paradoxically deeply informed by his mother's experience, but manifests differently. For Harry, the lesson was, the media will destroy my wife like they destroyed my mother, so we must flee and fight. For William, the lesson appears to be, the institution must never again be vulnerable to being dictated to by a media frenzy or an individual's relationship with it. His approach is one of fortified, controlled access, protecting his family with an almost rigid privacy. The brutal truth here is that the institution's stability, as he sees it, may require letting one member's battle go in order to firewall the whole. The clickbait phrase, worse than anyone imagined, taps into a real but more nuanced tragedy. The situation has deteriorated beyond early hopes of a quick reconciliation, because the divide is now fundamental and multi-layered. This is the core of the sadness. The rift between William and Harry is the engine of the drama. Once inseparable allies in grief, they now seem to inhabit different planets. Trust appears obliterated. Harry's public disclosures, in interviews, the Netflix series, and his memoir Spare, of private arguments, physical altercations, and feelings of betrayal have weaponized personal memory. From William's perspective, this is the ultimate breach of family and future king confidentiality. Any update from William is silence, because speaking would only add fuel to a fire he believes should never have been lit. The tragedy is that the bond that once protected them is now the wound that cannot heal, making reconciliation not just a family matter, but a perilous institutional gamble. The monarchy survives on the careful curation of a single, coherent narrative. The Sussexes, through Arkwell Productions and Harry's publishing deal, now have the power to produce competing narratives in high definition and best-selling print. Every documentary episode, every interview is a counter-history. William's update must therefore be a doubling down on the official narrative, making the monarchy's work and image so solid, so respectable, that the competing narrative seems like just another piece of celebrity entertainment. But this is a perpetual, draining state of Cold War. Meghan's entry forced a conversation the palace has avoided for centuries. Her experience and the couple's allegations of unconscious racial bias within the institution struck at the monarchy's most vulnerable point, its relevance in a diverse, modern Britain and Commonwealth. William's update has been a public denial of the family being racist, but the institution's struggle to address the issue with tangible action beyond statements continues. The worst here is the exposed gap between the monarchy's desire to be modern and its deep structural conservatism when faced with transformative change. The move to California didn't just create distance, it internationalized the conflict. The Sussexes are now embedded in the powerful, moneyed ecosystem of American media and philanthropy. Their battles are fought on Time magazine covers and Netflix releases, forcing a centuries-old European institution to fight a PR war on a transatlantic 24/7 news cycle battlefield for which it is inherently unsuited. This globalizes the scrutiny and raises the stakes immeasurably. Predicting the end of this story is impossible. Several paths stretch into the future. The headline screams with the digital era's favored currency, sensation. So sad, Prince William's brutal Meghan update is worse than anyone imagined. It is crafted for the swift click, the sharp intake of breath, the moral outrage that fuels social media algorithms. Yet beneath this glossy, brutal veneer lies a far more profound, complex, and human story, one not of cartoonish villainy, but of an ancient institution grinding against the tectonic plates of modernity, family fracture, and global celebrity. To understand what any update from the Prince of Wales might signify, we must journey beyond the clickbait and into the heart of a monarchy navigating its most challenging transition in generations. This is not a story with a single villain or victim. It is the story of two courts, two competing visions of duty, and the painful public space between them. The fairy tale narrative was intoxicating while it lasted. In 2018, the sight of the newlywed Duke and Duchess of Sussex standing alongside the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge on the balcony of Buckingham Palace presented a potent image of renewal. Hailed as the Fab Four, they symbolized a monarchy that could be both traditional and progressive, stately and relatable. The cracks, however, were already forming beneath the surface, not out of malice, but out of fundamentally irreconcilable approaches to royal life. Prince William, born into the direct line of succession, has been molded by a philosophy of slow and steady wins the race. His path, shaped profoundly by the traumatic public loss of his mother, is one of deep preparation, institutional respect, and incremental change. His court, both physically and philosophically, is based at Kensington Palace, long the seat of a working future monarch. The emphasis is on long-term projects like the Royal Foundation, initially shared with Harry, deep expertise, and a media strategy that is cautious, controlled, and prioritizes privacy, especially for his children. William's vision appears to be a monarchy that earns its place through unsensational, steadfast service, evolving just enough to remain stable, but not so much that it loses its mystical anchor in tradition. Prince Harry, living in the often uncomfortable penumbra of the Spare, carried a different legacy from his mother, one of radical empathy, media suspicion, and a desire to use his platform for loud global advocacy. Meghan, a successful American actress, entered the institution with the mindset of a modern, digital-era professional, accustomed to agency, swift execution, and using her voice directly. Their court, first at Nottingham Cottage and then Frogmore, operated with a different tempo. It was dynamic, entrepreneurial, and media-savvy in a new way, leveraging Instagram and splashy media partnerships. Their vision seemed to be a monarchy, or a royal role, that acted as a global humanitarian force, unafraid to take explicit stances on issues like social justice, mental health, and gender equality. The clash was perhaps inevitable. It was a clash of tempo, gradual versus immediate, of strategy, private diplomacy versus public advocacy, and of relationship to the media, managed truce versus open war. The institution's machinery, built to serve the monarch and the direct heir, struggled to accommodate, let alone synergize, the Sussex's mode of operation. Reports of staff tensions, of difficult demands, and of competing visions for the Royal Foundation were less about personal slights and more about a systemic culture shock. So, what is Prince William's brutal update on Meghan? It is highly unlikely to be a televised pronouncement or a leaked document full of personal condemnation. William, a future king, understands the gravity of his words. His update is not verbal. It is structural, operational, and symbolic. It is written in the choices made by the institution he is steadily coming to embody. The most significant update is the absolute, impermeable boundary now erected between the monarchy's working core and the Sussexes. This was finalized with the 2021 settlement, stripping Harry and Meghan of their royal patronages and military appointments, and confirming they would not return as working royals. This was not just an administrative change, it was a profound constitutional and symbolic severance. William, as a key pillar of the firm, would have been instrumental in upholding this boundary. The message is clear. You cannot leverage the sovereignty of the institution for commercial and personal gain while being free of its constraints. The monarchy's brand, its political neutrality, and its mystique are being fiercely protected. William's work since the Sussexes' departure has been a continuous, subtle update. His projects are deliberately focused on unifying, nonpartisan, nation-building themes: homelessness, environmental conservation, the Earthshot Prize, and national morale. This stands in stark contrast to the Sussexes' work, which often engages with politically adjacent issues like race, democracy, and tech ethics. William's narrative is one of service to the nation-state. The Sussexes' narrative is one of advocacy for global causes, often speaking to the nation-state and others about change. William's update is a relentless focus on the former, implicitly defining it as the correct, sustainable model for the crown.